Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, being on time. This is going to be a fantastic webinar that I've been looking forward to sharing with you for some time. Here we go. You've got some. Today's webinar is called Thriving in Volatility: Pharma Strategies for a VUCA World. I hope that everyone listening in knows what VUCA stands for. You've done your homework. But we are, as you can see from underneath that, building the strength and flexibility medical needs to lead pharma's future. And well, why? I think that this webinar was conceived round about the time of some of the most recent FDA cuts that we all witnessed. And I think there was a sharp intake of breath in front of every screen, up and down, not just the US, but actually the whole world. And I think that there was some concern as to how we would go ahead, and probably is still a lot of concern about how indeed we ensure that the world that we have become so used to, getting regulations and getting medicines through the pipeline as fast as we possibly can to patients as quickly as we can, how was that going to work going forward? At the same time, I was really, really pleased to see that my good friend Evie, who is joining us for this webinar, and I will introduce him in a second, provided an immediate counter narrative to the panic. And his counter narrative was one of, this is our chance. This is our chance as an industry to show that we are mature, we are capable, we can self-police to a degree. And just like anyone growing into adulthood, we don't need someone to necessarily hold our hand every step of the way. We can operate as an ethical and responsible industry going forward, irrespective of whether or not we're being examined at every step of the way. I thought that was a very bold and welcome statement, and it blossomed from a statement into a webinar where we're hopefully going to explore not just that issue, of course, but the volatility that we all live in, and how indeed we can make sure that as organizations, we are well equipped going forward to deal magnificently with the situations that we have. So the VUCA framework, interestingly, is a conceptual tool that has been in place since about 1987, has like much of our lexicon in business, it has kind of military origins. And it really does underscore the conditions and challenges of organizations are facing, and quite simply, in reaction to many organizations failing to cope with the situations that they had. It's about anticipating the key issues that emerge. It's about understanding the repercussions of those issues, appreciating how the different variables interrelate and not being, of course, cavalier. It's about understanding the repercussions and preparing, as well as, of course, tackling them when they come. Now, I can see that a few people must have been on a webinar with me before because they've already said hello. So if you happen to be watching, and I can see a lot of you are watching, and you haven't yet said hello in the chat window, please do so now. I want you guys to make sure that this is not just a one-way conversation. This is a topic that, let's be honest with you, nobody has the perfect answer to. So the more that we can set up a dialogue, a conversation here, and hear from everybody, the collected wisdom, the better. I'm also going to launch a poll right away, so you'll be able to look at that while I'm doing the introductions here. So if you look at your screen, it will appear in just a second. It takes a second with Zoom these days. It's called Today's Capabilities, and it's a two-part question. The first part is, let's imagine a major external series of events forces some kind of internal change, unexpected volatility for several months. Truthfully now, please speak truthfully. How do you think your company would respond? And of course, I'm most interested in how those working for pharmaceutical companies would respond on this. If you don't work for a pharma company, please choose the NA option, which is at the bottom. The second part, what does that response usually feel like to you? Okay, so a two-part question there. A couple of things I want to just quickly say. It is a rough old world out there, isn't it, right now? That's the other reason why I think this webinar exists. It is a tempestuous storm that we are currently in. And you sitting there in the middle of it with your little sailboat, you are trying to navigate technology disruptions. Of course, AI is seen as a great positive, but also a great negative at the same time. For many of us, it provides not just opportunity, but fear. Market volatility, something that's never really far away, but particularly turbulent in times like this. Regulatory, I already touched on the FDA issue already. Consumer behavior, of course, never stays static. Uh, Visibility and misinformation, something which we in our industry have had to cope with increasingly in this era of social media and interconnectedness. How well are we actually tackling that, or are we putting our head under the sand? Most would argue perhaps the latter. Reputation management, of course, closely linked to that. One of my favorite concepts, which I believe our industry should be better at, is the anti-fragility concept, which, of course, represented by this diagram. I find that not everybody in our industry is familiar with this concept. It's not the same as just being unfragile, i.e., robust. It's the ability to improve with more damage that you take. You could argue that training in the gym is a form of anti-fragile. You are hurting your muscles, but then they build back stronger. You could argue that a vaccine is anti-fragile. You're having a disease introduced to your body, and therefore your body can respond better to it in the future. Plenty of examples of anti-fragility that exist almost naturally, very few that we actually embed into our organizations. I've got a friend called Mike Rare. He works for a company called Idea Pharma. And he talks a lot about what we can do in phase one, right in the early days of our drug safety testing. And as you know, of course, it's all about safety in phase one. But he says that you could introduce more different scenarios. And in fact, he has studied and determined that the more a drug is put in different and more difficult situations in its early phase one trials, the more successful it ultimately is. For a couple of reasons. Firstly, scientists don't always know where the best indication and the best thriving of that drug is going to be, but also exactly because of this anti-fragility and volatility issue, we understand how well it stacks up in the real life. He calls it planned serendipity. Planned serendipity, planned being planning the natural and difficult way forward. Anyway, I'm going to stop the intro talk and move on to panelists. So Evie, I already mentioned, was very much an inspiration behind today's session. I have got to know him and his company Appian really well over the last couple of years. I have to say, what a fantastic group of people to work with. Don't think of them as a software company. That would be a silly thing to do. These guys are a reorganization force for good in our industry and can not only help us re-understand how to reprocessize, if you like, the way we do things, but also build in so much of the things that we've just been talking about as well, so that they stack up to the rather difficult surroundings that we have. Evie has been a leader in our industry for many, many years, from chemistry labs through to executive management. He's also brewing his own beer. So you know what? When it all goes wrong, he's got a solution for that too. Klaus is somebody who you may well know of because he was a very senior person at Novartis. He was the chief ethics, risk and compliance officer there. He was on the executive committee at Novartis up until relatively recently. He's now at Deutsche Bank, and he has led a lot of work on the integration of ethics and AI governance. We're going to, of course, cover AI here today. And he's a former criminal defense lawyer as well. So chief compliance officer, absolutely fantastic, Klaus, that you can be here. Isabella has the luxury of working across many different industries. She's the CEO of the Legacy Leaders Institute and a trusted advisor to governments and many Fortune 500 leaders on transformation, leadership, and most importantly for this, resilience. She hosts a top-ranked podcast, and she has been known to boost clients' market share by 40% plus without losing her signature sparkle. So thank you, Isabella, for being here. Raj is joining us from Jazz Pharma, and she is Senior Director of R&D Business Excellence. She has done a lot of work in as a Chief of Staff to the Chief Regulatory and Safety officer. She's worked at Lilly Shire Takeda. She's got a lot of experience in quality, inspection readiness, and business strategy, as well as, of course, people management, which is a critical aspect of everything we're talking about today. Raj, an absolute pleasure to have you here. And Nita is a fantastically wonderful person to be on this panel, and that's because she wasn't originally going to be, but when she saw it, she was put her hand up. She put her hand up and she said, I want to contribute. I've got something to say on this, and most certainly she does. Nita, great that you're here with us. You've got a role as the Global Head of Medical Insights and Analytics at Sanofi, and you're a board-certified physician with a knack for turning complex data into bold medical strategy, a genuine mentor to change makers as well as being a change maker herself. So thank you so much. That's the panel. But before we go to the panel, just one more thing. You did actually answer a couple of questions when you signed up for today's webinar. I'm now about to reveal the answers to those. Okay, so question one, what's the biggest frustration when trying to build real adaptability into pharma operations? Let's see what the percentages mean on this. So the top winning one with nearly a third of the vote, internal silos between medical, commercial, digital. Possibly no surprise there. Second place, good ideas blocked by slow or risk-averse processes, over a quarter of you. Next one, too many agile buzzwords, not enough actual progress. Interesting that a lot of people chose about that. Of course, we could have framed this entire webinar with agility, but a lot of people wanting to move beyond agility. Others tell us in the chat, endless pilot projects with no clear scaling path and regulatory uncertainty making it hard to plan anything. That was question one. Question two was, when it comes to handling external volatility, which best reflects where your company is right now? What's the current state of play? Highest one was 22%. We're reactive, always playing catch up. Okay, so definitely you're in the right room. Tell us in the chat, 20%. We adapt in pockets but lack consistency across teams, equally 20.7%. Not sure. The strategy shifts too often to tell was 14%. We've over-invested process, under-invested in outcomes, 12%. And we've built flexible systems and adjust quickly. Notice that there's a much more even spread of answers across these ones. So nothing really in particular standing out above all the rest. Really, we've got a lot of issues going on. Okay. What we'd like you to do during today's session is something we've never asked you before. We want you to use the reactions button on your screen. Why don't you have a go right now and let us know? I want to see, here's a quick key for you. I agree, thumbs up. I disagree, thumbs down, which you might have to search for in the menu initially. This is a great idea. I want to see some hearts. Please do indeed try it now. I don't see anyone doing it right now, which means I'm probably looking at the wrong screen, or indeed it's not working, but hopefully it is. Okay, marvelous. Thank you so much. Panel, it's time for you to turn your cameras on, as I'm sure everybody is sick of hearing from me. I would like to issue a disclaimer. Everyone on the panel is speaking from their own personal perspective and not necessarily that of their company. We are recording today's session, so you don't need to ask me for a recording. Okay, my team reliably informs me that lots of reactions, good reactions are coming. I just can't see it all on my screen at the moment. Okay, good, right. Panel, there you are, looking wonderful, looking beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us still. I want to start off by asking about the challenges. I've given you my sort of thoughts as to why it's all going wrong, why this is a particularly heated moment at the time. It's not just because of the FDA situation. Can we say that the challenges are not all external, but perhaps even self-inflicted to a degree, that we are not necessarily set up? So how would you describe the challenge? How would you describe this challenge, both from the outside world and the inside world? Whoever wants to go first, please.
I'll take a quick stab at it and I'll say this is everything. So you got to keep it in perspective. I'm the son of two individuals that went through World War II and had to go in hiding in Europe for about 4 years during the war itself as children, 7 and 9 year old. and their parents went through a lot themselves, right? So I think part of the challenge is put a perspective on where you're at. The world was always volatile. The world was always ambiguous. Um, it's how we react to it and how we deal with it, and whether you can maintain some level of optimism regardless of what you see out there.
Thank you, Evie. So it's never been far away from us. Yet somehow that also means we should have figured it out by now. No?
I can't agree more. I can agree more on that.
Go for it. Go on, Isabella. Please expand.
And what just Abby said, what is also very important to understand where are you at individually as a leader, but also where is your team and organization. And one component that I'm seeing constantly being missing, where is that resilience, endurance, right? You have that emotional intelligence, but where is emotional capacity to hold on all of this, what's going on simultaneously, in order to really that align with that not only strategy, but also opportunity to expand at the core. And when resilience in place, then we have much stronger output as a result of it. And we tied each other a much stronger way to really execute more effectively and deal with these ambiguities and also these challenges that Evie referenced.
Mm.
I mean, maybe we also, as pharma, in a very special situation. I mean, I've served now 3 different industry, technology, pharma, and finance. And I mean, at pharma, we are the closest industry to human life and health, which makes huge expectations towards the industry. And you know, I think in a VUCA world, the people expect not only resilience and good processes from us, but also empathy, because we are so close to human health. And this is the old dilemma, ethical dilemma in pharma as well, which is very strong in crises. You saw this in the patent debate during COVID. How can you make profit in a VUCA world in a crisis? So I think we are in a special situation because the people expect, I would say rightfully so, empathy from us in pharma, but we still have to run supply chains and the business, and this makes it a very special, a special spot to be in.
I think also just building on what you're sharing, Klaus and Isabella and Evie, is that in the pharma industry, depending on where we sit within the business, if we're in research and development and quality, where we need that clarity and consistency, and that's foundational to what we do, I think it's leading to sort of risk-averse behavior when there is that almost like trying to navigate with the fog type of a scenario. So I know, Isabella, you're talking about agility, but also thinking about the impact of those external factors on decision making, on capabilities within the organization, and just thinking of how do we address some of those? Are we too rigid in our processes and systems and designs? What's preventing us from sort of pivoting based on some of those challenges that are coming our way?
I would like to add here. So what is very refreshing is the very first comment from Evie, which was about mindset. And when I think about it, I think there needs to be a mindset shift to a solution-oriented approach. Like we spend so much time on problems, like we talk about VUCA. And I reached out to Paul because I had learned about this concept in the insurance world. I was in the payer system working as medical director for policy. And around the time of the pandemic, there was so much chaos around it. And the concept was VUCA Prime. And of course, we Googled it and we chat GPT'd it. But it is the clarity, which is vision, which is understanding, the agility and clarity. And I think what I would emphasize is that mindset shift, which is, what is the solution? Let's come up with 3 solutions. And so you kind of get rid of the chaos and look more towards the opportunity. So, Paul, that's what I wanted to actually come up and say out here.
And if you don't mind, I would just wanted to highlight something which I wanted to really pause for a second. And what we're dealing with is definitely a lot of chaos and crisis, right? And where is the purpose? What is our purpose in it? What is the crisis? How is it being created? And how did that shift who we are and what we're all about. So when we also look at purpose, then we don't panic. We obviously have a lot of fear and panic right now. And how do you actually respond to the crisis? And I want to just highlight every situation I've been supporting when it's a lot of crisis going on. Why, again, I'm circling back to resilience, because brings those three concepts together that you just mentioned, which is the clarity, uncertainty that is unwavering, that we're all clear, not just top leadership, but everybody that's being involved within organization. In addition to that, that we have the sense of cohesion and across all functions, which always with silos, it's fragmented right now. And when it's crisis, how many people really are part of that solution or awareness, right? And the third one that I found that was being hugely helping to tie all this together was a cadence that for adaptation, that we're not in that frozen, standstill, not reactive state, but also able to quickly adopt and adjust. So when we have those three elements, I find it's much more easier, and it's easier to navigate not only ourselves, but the rest of the team as well organization.
Isabella, thank you for bringing purpose. I find that a bit of a strange one. Purpose, of course, is what often drives us as individuals. It may or may not fully align with that of our company. And of course, every company will say they're here for the patient. Of course, commercial goals as well, but ultimately here for the patient. What I find is that nobody in our industry has a very differentiating vision, something that is unique and inspiring. I often say we hit ourselves every day with carrots, but we rarely give ourselves, we hit ourselves every day with sticks, but we rarely give ourselves a carrot and an actual destination out there, something that we can anchor to that is very strong and very differentiated. You're someone who sees across other industries. Do you think pharma is better or worse than other industries for this? Because on the one hand, we think we're good because we have patients and we care individually and personally. On the other hand, I personally believe we could be doing a lot better.
Being advising and being in healthcare industry, not necessarily so much in pharma and life science, but then intersecting as a result of from health industry, I can tell you that we have tremendous opportunity to improve. Because I see so much unnecessary taxing on people's emotions and focus on stressors that could actually be taken away, alleviated from them. And if we improve how we look at a human as the primary focus and value, right? As every contributor in pharma industry that is bringing things to the table actually is the most valuable asset. And then if we go from this human-centric approach and we make the shift, all those pieces will fall as a domino effect in such a great positive way. But unfortunately, we neglect to look at it. If we focus on patient, who is actually providing the care, how we're showing up to actually deliver that. And if we're not bringing understanding, and not even talking about work-life balance and all of those elements, but if we're constantly in that phase of fatigue and exhaustion and another crisis, another layer, the capacity container to hold and handle all of this, it's just getting heavier and heavier, and we have such a lower and lower threshold. And as a result, we're seeing a lot of dysfunctions and a lot of actually very hard to recover elements that are happening, where people are not performing well, when people are also leaving, when people are burned out as a result of it. So when you look at is it worse? I just think because it's a speed of change that is not catching up. And then also in the same time that we're not quickly adjusting and letting go of what's truly is not necessary. And what doesn't help is obviously if leadership it's not fully aware of, if it's in silo and dysfunctional environment. So I have to say, to answer your question now, is with all of those factors, is it better or worse than other industries? Just because you're so much more directly connected to patient, you are more as a result of also exposed to it, and threshold of burnout is much higher. So I would say is unless you have a safeguards and protection, it is going to be and continue to be much more worse than other industries that I'm seeing right now.
Double-edged sword. Thank you.
Paul, if I may, a little bit come back to your point, why is this sounding also the same in all the pharma companies? Maybe there's another reason behind, which is at the moment challenged, which hopefully unites all the pharma companies that we believe in science. we are all true believer in science. I mean, this is the basis for the pharma industry, and this is a little bit different from other industries, I would say. At the end, we are selling, I mean, science to people, and this is, as we all know at the moment, in the context we are living, a challenge, which is another challenge for the industry next to our reputation, other issues. But it's a good thing that we have a joint purpose, and therefore many of the slogans sound the same because basically they go to the patients and they go to science. And it's not a bad thing, I would say.
Not a bad thing, but not differentiated either, and therefore difficult to get people to adhere to, I would argue. But of course, that's at the pointy end. And Evie, I would love to hear your thoughts here because, in fact, it might even be a good chance for you to share a couple of slides because I think that the things that you and your company have been working on to ensure that we are a little bit more adaptable, anti-fragile, if I may, could be useful at this point.
Working, right?
Yep, all good.
So just very quickly to repeat, VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. I think these pictures provide a good understanding of what are we talking about from a perspective of low volatility, low uncertainty, high uncertainty, etc. We will share the slides afterwards, so you'll have it in front of you. I wanted to make sure that everybody is also aware. In the beginning of this year, there was actually a very nice white paper that was issued by the World Economic Forum together with McKinsey, and they did a pretty nice assessment of resilience and how to navigate in a volatile world. I have the link here. You can go get it on yourself. It's not, it doesn't cost, it's free. And on this page also towards the bottom, I've highlighted the Carlsberg story. As I was looking to understand what are other folks doing in the space of this VUCA, I came across the Carlsberg story. They've been in existence since the 1800s, so close to a 200-year-old company. It doesn't just happen for a 200-year-old brand to survive and to exist through all the changes we've seen since the 1800s. There has to be a purpose, there has to be a way of leading, a way of managing. And yeah, if we look at Carlsberg, they provide, we all know them for beer, but there's a lot of other products that they've actually expanded to in order to support that resilience. And one of the key parts of the story was it was really a very foresighted way in which they look to manage themselves. And if you look at them as being a very global company, they serve countries like Pakistan and India and the Middle East and Africa and everywhere. And everywhere there is a lot of change, a lot of challenges, political turmoil, and they still find themselves to be resilient in that environment. So that we have a lot to learn from how they're surviving through that. So read that story, it's linked in here as well. I wanted to understand a little bit, what are the key disruptors? What are the trends that we see as far as disruptions to organizations that are associated with this VUCA? And it seemed to point to technology, cybersecurity, and all aspects, of course, of AI now, at the top of the list. But then some of the other ones come pretty closer afterwards. Regulatory changes. We definitely know and saw what's happening at the agency, at the FDA in the United States. I was at DIA last week. It's a very large event, conference in DC, and many FDA employees and ex-employees came by and spoke to us. The FDA is actually using Appian's technology to provide a lot of many different services, and one of them, of course, is supporting the next generation gateway. So all submissions from currently drug go through Appian, but also biologics next and devices after that. And the important thing that we understood from talking to the FDA folks, those that are still there and those that are either at home waiting to hear and those that were let go, everybody had a purpose at the FDA. Nobody was working there for an easy job or for the money everybody was working with this true purpose. And that's kind of what we missed, I think, when we just went to cut the agency the way it was done, regardless of where you stand politically. So we'll see regulations are going to be in turmoil, and nobody's going to, we will see some things coming in our direction that we are not, that we're surprised by. There's going to be things that are going to come that we find ourselves are no longer appropriately regulated. One example is there's now talk about eliminating the advertisements on TV. If you go back to, I think, before the 80s, there were no advertisements on TV at that time. We're kind of going back to that world. Well, how are you going to adjust and modify and deal with it as a company? On the other hand, there's going to be other parts of the regulatory world that we expect that we're driving us to behave in a certain way, and those might be laxed. Well, do you then lax your own processes, or do you stay, as Paul mentioned earlier, you show maturity and you continue, right? Efficacy, safety, quality, those are all things that we don't need to be regulated for. These are things that we should be doing on our own. And whether the regulators come and enforce it with a 483 or with some other, we should be just doing it as a matter of business. And of course, you're looking at some of the other modifiers here: macroeconomics, capital and balance sheets, et cetera, et cetera. Another way to look at this whole VUCA space is to understand, how do you as a company prepare for such a world? And there's aspects of foresights and preparation capabilities that you need to diligently, continuously work on. And there's aspects of crisis management and crisis response, because crisis will happen. And then within that circle, you can actually see the various different capabilities, financial resilience, operational resilience, market positions, etc., and all of that driving to resilience framework. And if your company has a good sense of how you manage all of these, then you will find yourself to be more resilient. If you don't, and you lack in some of these, you should probably work to expand your capabilities there. As far as Appian's contribution here, we see ourselves, so we are a process company, but more than that, we're a process orchestration company. And it's not just, I think in the beginning, somebody mentioned, I don't know if it was Paul or somebody else, we have so much process, we don't need more process. I think it was Raj, maybe. Mm-hmm. And you're right. If you try to inventory all the processes that we have in the product commercialization and life cycle, to take a drug through the 14 years, all the way through to, from initiation, research, et cetera, all the way to a launch, and all the processes we have that support also medical and connecting to sales, et cetera. There's hundreds, maybe even more than thousands of processes. How do you manage in that type of a world? I think part of it is you need to deal with the aspect and understand that there's complexity there. We probably need the processes to actually move ourselves from one place and one point to another, and to connect the humans and the data with process. But yet you need to be able to orchestrate that in a way that continuously improves that, so that you eliminate cycle backs and eliminate processes that are unnecessary, or that in a world that is continuously moving towards leveraging AI, leveraging automation, you can eliminate some of that process. We're still dealing with document and document-centric capture of information that's pretty ancient. We basically moved from paper to electronic paper. We're still working in Word, in PowerPoint. Wow, I mean, we need to change. My daughter, who's working for Sanofi, basically, asked me, Dad, why do we still work with faxes? A good question, right? It's totally outdated. We need to move beyond that. So Appian is actually dealing with the end-to-end process orchestration. And then we also work with why do we do it? We do it because we are, similarly to yourselves, increasing efficiencies, looking to reduce cycle times, looking to get better at what we do, and doing so in a unified platform that will allow you to actually bring all the processes, but then orchestrate them in a way that can continuously improve. And last, from a mission perspective, we're looking to do this with speed and efficiency. Speed and efficiency will help you counter that crisis or provide some of that resilience when you need it, because things will change. And the faster you're able to react to the change, the better you will come out of it. But you also have to make sure that you maintain quality and compliance, making better decisions faster, maintain revenue and cost. So contain costs, but also make sure that you have revenue, because you need to survive another day to provide that next treatment and to stay there for the patients with the current treatment. So there's no shortages, that there's no lack of a treatment to a population that needs it. And then, of course, the experience. Back to that fax question, people are going to leave the industry if they need to continue using faxes. We need to make sure that the new folks coming in have a good experience, understand they can focus on high value activities and get more done. And last, future-proofing this. And whether it's AI today or something else tomorrow, just continuously improve and enhance. And back to you, Paul, with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Evie. And I appreciate you taking us into solutions and inspiring us with a sense that it is achievable. And indeed, it's something that you have done. I'd like to ensure that as a result of Evie moving us into solutions, that we try and stay solution and oriented and as practical as we can for the remainder of this conversation. You can see Irv has written in the comments looking for actionable solutions rather than just descriptions of the tumultuous environment we're in. So let's try and indeed meet him there. So we've heard from Evie on some of the practical things that can happen. I'd like a piece of advice from all of you on the panel, if possible, as actionable and, if possible, evidence-based as you can make it. What is the thing that you would like people to do most of all when they come into the office on Monday morning to do as pharma companies to be more ready and prepared and capable in a VUCA world, as practically as possible?
I don't mind Paul going first. So for me, it's having that growth mindset. I think I've seen in the chat, Stephanie and others have commented around sort of taking the time to pause and reflect as to what we've been doing, but actually thinking about the future and what we need to invest in. Having that growth mindset of what we've done today may not be scalable or sustainable moving forward. So what does that look like and what do we need to do? Is it embracing technology with intention? Is it building cross-functional expertise? I think there's been a few comments in the chat about breaking down the silos. Is it designing the systems that are more predictive, proactive and agile? But all of that means there has to be a task force or some group focusing on this. There's a lot of buzz around introducing technology, but we need to think of technology as our enabler and also a way to amplify our existing capabilities and empower the existing talent that we have within organizations. So not to scare folks away from it, but really partnering and thinking about, well, how rather than what we can do or what technology is out there.
Thank you, Raj. And just while others contribute to this, I'm going to share the results of the poll that I asked at the beginning, which I never showed you the results of. Interestingly, the highest answer on the first question, what would you do if something hit you as a company, is with a flurry of meetings and unclear outcomes, getting 22% of the vote. I'm ignoring the NA vote, of course, on that. So anyway, I'll keep those up for a minute and then I'll get another poll going. But do continue the conversation, please.
I wanted to piggyback off what Raj said because that was exact what I was thinking. And I think on a Monday morning, the first thing we do is like prioritize the meetings and what's the agenda for the week. And the focus usually is what needs to be done. And I think it would be helpful to figure out why we need to do it. I think that not only offers the clarity and it kind of is a solution-oriented approach where you know why you're doing a certain task. And that by itself is a mindset shift. That coupled with management being more transparent in terms of certain ambiguous situations. I think it's a perfect answer to say, no, we don't know everything, but this is what we can share. I think having or creating the culture of psychological safety by sharing transparent information would go a long way in, moving or shifting to that vision and a clarity kind of perspective. So not the what, but the why.
I love what you ladies share, and if you don't mind, I'm just kind of wrap it up this with one layer that I see constantly that is failing. We have the lowest trust of leadership right now, and I would encourage everybody to show up as the leader do expect to have. And when you start doing that, no matter where you are in the structure of organization, if you feel like that your voice doesn't matter or that you're not as visible, be seen based on those attributes, based on all of what that's lacking. Start building trust among your peers and really show what that resilient, agile leadership look like. Where is also curiosity there, where is a lot of questions there, where is a lot of questioning why, and then also figure it out. How do we get better? How can we re-engineer our cross-functional flow? How can we re-engineer better communication? Because every single situation is always collapsing because of lack of visibility and approachability of leaders, as a lack of communication, because it's all that hazy gray area that make us wonder, think, and creates more confusion, chaos, crisis, and escalation, right? So when you are at least aware of what's going on in your world and your department with your team, and then with other departments, then it's that level of clarity, and everything else is not going to only set everybody good for that Monday, but for rest of the week, for rest of the month, and frankly, for rest of the year. And that is how you build that momentum and compound results. That's how you actually achieve ROI. If you always focus with for ROI first, which always later want to push that down the throat, but if you don't build the resilience, and if you don't really look at all these components that actually ultimately drive it, you have to reverse that. And when you do, you will be amazed how much more power, impact, influence you can achieve, not only in your role, but in everything you do with your teams.
And Isabella, there was a question about 20 minutes ago from Maria Campillo that said, have you, Isabella, actually experienced an organization? I think this is again our industry wanting to look outside of our industry. Have you experienced an organization where those silos that you just mentioned have been broken down? And is it genuinely possible, or are we just going to keep saying it for the next 10 years?
I love the question. Yes and no. It is possible, and it was possible for me, but I had to work very diligently with C-suite executives. And first of all, I have whiteboard sessions and breaking silos within them, because as you know, every organization and every C-suite executive has their own budgets, agenda, and drive what they need to achieve. And a lot of times does not create cohesive understanding among other teams. When they are in alignment and when they are striving to same goals, sometimes you don't need necessarily all of them, but at least 2 or 3 that you co-depend so much on, and allowing to have a pilot program, which I always say, how about we do just something very small, easy, and we see traction and excitement and turn things around and engagement. And based on these criteria, when we attach right ROIs and KPIs, then you guys will see what's possible. Because one thing I'm finding that are always not necessarily in alignment. So when I'm allowed to do that from external strategic advisor and consultant, that magic can happen. And obviously we can't just stop on that first major win, right? So laying out the other foundation, but it is the process. Everybody knows change is quick and rapid. Transformation is conscious decision and takes long period of time. And that doesn't mean that's going to taxi on you, but when it's right, when you build the momentum, when you see this incremental small changes that are building 1% at a time better from the yesterday, you are going to be better off not only months and weeks later, but years to come. So to answer your question, I had a few scenarios when organizations were willing to invest on those levels, and they were absolutely amazed. As a result, everything flourished. It was just numbers were on every aspects improving, but the biggest one was obviously a unity of the team and engagement. On the flip side, if you have a still fragmentation when somebody will say, I really don't care what's going on with marketing and sales, or I'm not interested in this or the other, I just want to make sure that we just get our stuff done, that type of approach is going to hinder no matter how passionate, driven, capable, and able you are. And it's very important that you guys recognize where the problem is and then diplomatically bring it to the attention. Because if you set up a mission impossible, no matter how hard you try and no matter how capable you are, you're not going to achieve those ROIs and KPIs that are set for you to achieve.
Thank you, Isabel. Klaus,
Yeah,
just
I
before
would-
going to you, Klaus, just before going to you, can I just say I'm going to close this poll in 10 seconds, so make sure you've answered it if you haven't already. And Klaus, please give your answer, but also I want you to reflect on the fact that you were at the executive committee level in Novartis for a long time, and whether or not you believe you've been able to make changes whilst navigating this in that company. An honest assessment would be appreciated.
Yeah, I would try my very best. I mean, first of all, I believe Isabel, that it's a cultural topic. I mean, I counted down, I think we mentioned in this webcast now 20 times breaking down the silos. Interestingly enough, from a behavioral science point of view, it's always the silos of the others. It's always the bureaucracy of the others. My training, my policies, absolutely mandatory. I can't give up with it. Not invented here. Please step out. Yeah, I'm open for discussion, but I'm the expert. I know what to do. And this is what you need to deal with on an executive, on a board level, because you have to listen to the various parts. There's always biases involved, of course. I always give a very interesting example of real company life. Let's take the strategy people and the risk people. They hate each other normally in company, because risk people say strategy people are this high level fluffy guys and they have no idea about real life. And strategy people say risk people are the bureaucrats of the company. But strategy and risk, I mean, at the end, they belong together and much more in the VUCA world. What I've seen, of course, at Siemens in the corruption crisis, at Novartis in our legacy compliance crises, and in COVID is, it works in a crisis situation. It works really. I mean, suddenly companies in the crisis situation, good companies, are able to build holistic team and to create psychological safety. The interesting question is, after the crisis is over, many companies just drop it. They go back to the old ways of doing things. But in the crisis, the company who survived, I mean, decades and hundreds of years, they knew it in the crisis when it really matters. But the question is, why not sustainably in the future?
And why is that? Because we all know that our industry performed really well during COVID and fell back. And it was necessity is the mother of invention. So we know that we can survive in a crisis and thrive. But why couldn't we keep it up, Klaus?
The sense of urgency is going away very fast.
Yeah, but shouldn't we be able to build in those?
Yeah, but also from the stakeholders. I mean, at the OECD, where I'm very active, I mean, the politicians said in the pandemic and afterwards, health is the most important topic, full focus, can never happen again. 1 year after COVID, it was off the agenda. I mean, health plays basically no big topic on the OECD agenda anymore. So other topics came in, right? So, and we as industry, we follow this, and we give up too early, and to say that's a major topic we need to keep. But it's so. I mean, it's a moment, and then it goes away.
Okay, I want to move the conversation on. We've only got 10 minutes. Something I promised at the beginning, even though we've all heard it every single minute of every day for the past 3 years, is AI. And I say that just because, of course, it brings in both opportunity and risks. Evie, I want to come to you first on this, as running a company that is so technology focused, and of course, you'll be full of engineers and technologists who are super excited about the future, but also working on ways to make sure that we do it safely and carefully. And I personally enjoy the fact that our company has a different attitude, our industry has a different attitude from Silicon Valley. We don't just move fast and break things. We do actually, I think that Silicon Valley has a lot to learn from Pharma rather than the other way around. But what is your take, Evie, on how we need, or what What is your concern about how we're going forward with AI and technology across the board? And what would you love to see us do more of? And those of you who can answer the poll question at the same time, please go ahead.
So I'll compare this to getting stuck in a riptide. If you know what a riptide is, that's a tide that happens, on the shore where waves are coming in, but then there's always a portion of the water that needs to flow back into the ocean. It can't be just flowing in one direction, right? So some of the waves come in, but then there's areas of the shore where the tide actually goes back out. The person that gets stuck in there is going to get basically sucked all the way out deep in the ocean. Well, number one, you need to know to do something, because if you don't do anything, you're just going to be back. You find yourself deep in the ocean with no help, nothing. But you also don't want to swim against the current, because then you're going to get very, very tired and run out of energy, and eventually, again, end up deep in the ocean. What's the strategy? You need to start swimming sideways, swim perpendicular to the actual tide, and whether you go in one direction, the other direction, fine, but you're going to find yourself swimming outside of that tide and find yourself in a safe place. That's what we need to do with, how we actually manage all of this in life sciences. We need to understand which direction is the tide going. Don't go with it. Don't swim against it, but find a good way to actually do it safely. And I think the key to safety for us is always the Hippocratic Oath. Do no harm. Just do no harm. Whatever you're going to do with AI, make sure that you're looking at it very carefully, do no harm, and leverage some of the guidance that FDA put in front of us in January, which was use the whole aspect of you have to still validate, you have to still verify, you still have to build the context of use into what you're doing with AI, the COU.
Thank you. Okay, I want to hear some more opinions on AI and technology and how we introduce it. I'll be closing this poll in 10 seconds, so make sure you answer that if you haven't. I also keep giving me those reactions, please. We like those reactions, those little emojis. Points for whoever is the most creative emoji user in the audience as well. So, Isabel, Anita, Raj, Klaus, AI.
I love what AI is actually doing and capable to do for us. And we have to really look at and treat it as a tool, right? It's not as a fear-based replacement for your role. In the same time, obviously, we have to be very disciplined. How do we accelerate leverage of AI as well leverage and growth of company? So I see a lot of great avenues when companies are leveraging to create automation for repetitive tasks, for things that truly most people actually, and specifically science and creative minds in pharma and scientific industry actually don't like. So looking from that perspective, it's like, yeah, then I can focus what I'm really passionate about. It's really also opportunity to look at how do we speed cautiously. I love what you said earlier. What can Silicon Valley learn from the pharma? But in the same time, again, it's like, what are we actually trying to solve? Where solutions going to come from, and how, and how to integrate this properly. But I can just say that right now, we also have a huge opportunity to redesign the governance with it. And I think when we do that, a lot of things that are right now seen as a bottleneck can truly improve tremendously.
Thank you. Raj, Nita, anything to add?
I think for
I
me,
can only think of a joke right now, Raj, but there was this joke I heard that, college students use AI to write essays. The teachers use AI to assess them, and then AI takes the job. So this was a gym card joke, and I thought it made sense to me. But I think the reality is the AI is here to stay, and AI is more, think about AI as your friend, and it always will have a human in loop. And I think if you start working together with AI, it will bring about certain efficiencies. And I think Raj was talking about systems and technology, and I think it fits in so closely. So see AI as your friend. And remember the joke. It's fun. It will make things pretty cool and easy as you go ahead.
And no caution from you, Nita. No, our friends can turn sour sometimes in life.
Paul, I think
Agreed.
it is AI in process, right? AI cannot be just there to bang on every nail that you see. you need to understand what's the context of use, where are you going to put it, and put it into the process. Solve a problem. Don't just look at, it's not just about efficiencies. It's about really leveraging it for
Absolutely.
enhancing,
Absolutely.
for getting better orchestration.
I think I kind of didn't talk about the hour every day I spent with the EBI colleagues, because if you're working with AI, you have to have a very responsible and ethical way of use. And I think Klaus can speak to it, because with that work, you work very closely with data, the data privacy, and it's a huge intersection between the quality you can bring to the work, but also the aspects of ethical use of data. So I think Klaus can probably be someone to comment on this aspect as well.
Happy to do, but Raj, I think you had also.
Yes, go for Raj.
Yes, Raj.
Maybe.
I'm just going to say, I mean, it's great. AI is there to stay. It's like a co-worker, and you can use it in various capacities. But I think there has to be some structure around it. So I always go back to the governance, and I think there was a few comments in the chat around forums. It's great to have the governance and forums, but you have to have a coordinated way and prioritize like where you're going to get the most return, and also where it makes sense, rather than just thinking of the silos. If we know we have silos right now, we don't want to just take the problem with the silos of how the functions are working from a process perspective to then have a siloed approach to AI and implementation of AI. Let's try and have some governance and actually look at end-to-end solutions for cross-functional stakeholders, rather than just going off in our camps and then going, we have this spend broader, but just think about governance from a VUCA perspective. If you think about your org and the changes and how you deal with those unanticipated changes, but then also from an AI perspective, have that governance in your organization around, what you're thinking and where you want to bring in the use of AI.
Okay, guys, only 2 minutes left. As expected, we are just getting to the crescendo as we all have to leave. Typical, eh? But Klaus, I think you were called on for a sentence there, and then
Yeah,
Evie, you to
very
have
quickly.
the
I mean,
final
we
word.
can discuss frameworks of compliance and risk, but I would advise you start with a diverse roundtable on principles of ethical use of AI. Get all the different functions, cultures on a virtual roundtable. You can build, user towns and agree on principles. What are the basic principles in the company we want all to adhere to? And we all are in for innovation, for speed, especially in R&D. But what are the 4 or 5, not much more principles we agree? And then build you need a risk framework and all the stuff. But without the principles and the diversity on the table, you will not get to a tangible output. Start roundtable, discuss what really matters from an ethical point of view.
Okay, thank you. So Evie, as the original inspiration, and we only have a minute, so I can only give you a sentence, I'm afraid. But what is your final wish that we start doing in our industry?
Stop navel gazing and start looking at how do we actually continue to make a better world, and continue with our inspired work. I mean, we're all inspired by ourselves, and I'm trying to inspire people around me, and we just need to continue doing that and stay positive, optimistic, and take an action.
You heard him. No more tears, no more turmoil over the difficulties that we face. I have to say that even when we did the prep meeting for this webinar, I was astounded by just how positive and resilient every one of our panelists appeared to be. So thank you guys for being forward-looking and optimistic as we tackle this thorny subject. A final poll, if you haven't done so yet, about your next steps. But other than that, I do want to respect everybody's time. It's been amazing to have this panel on board. Thank you so much, guys, for giving us your energy, insights, and thoughts. It's a pleasure. We could obviously continue talking for 3 more hours without, maybe we shall do. Have a drink on me, and we will find a bar somewhere in the world and continue this conversation. Feel free to join us, anyone listening as well. Hope to catch you next time. Thanks so much for all of your contributions, especially those of you who were active in the polls and the chat and the reactions and all of those things. Marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. We will get back to you very soon. This is being recorded, so you don't need to worry about that. And we will hear from you all very soon. Don't be late for your next meeting. I will see you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Awesome. Great care.